everybody. It's Christie, Associate Artistic Director here at T3, and this is our monthly episode of Uptown Drama. Jeffrey is not with us here today because he's out in the wilderness fishing somewhere. He needs to get out. He needs to get away and be with nature so that he can come back and run the theater. But I do have a really special guest today, a wonderful actor and a even better friend, Jim Crawford, who is playing Lawrence in our current production of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Hi, Jim.
Hello, Christy.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I'm struck with how jungle my background looks. I've
It
never
is.
particularly been a person with a green thumb, but I'm house sitting in Carter Gill's apartment, and he's
Uh-huh.
got beautiful plants all over, so I've been entrusted with them.
It's really jungly.
Mm.
How do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about being are they live plants?
Oh, they're live. Yeah, there's a whole system. Certain ones have to be watered every few days, certain ones every week and a half. But it's a nice apartment. It's a good deal, so I'm happy to do that.
Sure. And do you have a green thumb?
Not particularly, no.
Yeah,
No, I always like to say all of my skills are fictional.
you and I are both uniquely unqualified to do anything else in the world other than pretend
Exactly.
and
Hey,
teach others how to pretend.
before we get into the meat of things, can I throw out one thing? Because I
Sure.
want this to be part of the Theater 3 historical record. I wrote this line in my bio, but I don't think anybody reads bios. And, even now that they're online, even more so. But this was the fun line that I wrote in my bio is I now consider myself a founding member of Club Theater 3 because at Theater 3, I have played romantically opposite both Christy Vela and Jeffrey Schmidt. And
Really?
if there's anyone else who is in that category, we need to go out and have martinis together and talk. But yeah, I'm very proud
Oh
of that.
my gosh. What did you play romantically opposite Jeffrey?
The first show I did in Theater 3 was in 1999. We did As Bees in Honey Drown.
Oh,
And and he
yes.
played the lead, and I played a few different roles, but the guy who he wound up with happily ever after at the end. So Jeffrey and I wound up happily ever after. You and I definitely did not.
We did not.
We did not,
You,
but you and I got to make out, and Jeffrey and I never did. So,
right.
I mean, what's a better
Yeah.
relationship? I don't know.
Yeah. Like, and actually, we got to make out in one, and then in the other one, I got to like shank you in the
You did.
ribs.
You killed me.
Man, that was a fun show. Okay, before we get
It
into all
was.
that,
Yes,
Jim, just tell us a little bit about your history here in Dallas and where
sure.
you are now.
Sure. I'm not a Dallas native. I grew up outside Boston, but I lived in Dallas for 18 years. I came here from, well, I came here from New York City in 1998 for what I thought was a year and
Uh-huh.
wound up staying for 18 years. I lived here for 18 years and then left 10 years ago and moved to Sewanee, Tennessee. But yeah, Dallas is an incredibly important place to me. I think of it as the place where I became the person I was meant to be. It's
Oh,
like I had my education, I had things in my life going, but Dallas, where I thought I was just coming for a year, was the place where everything lined up. I like my acting took off. I really discovered that teaching was what I was meant to be. I met my husband, we adopted our son. It became the place where, oh my God, all of the pieces of my life line up in a way. And so Dallas will always be it. I carry it with me in my heart.
that is so good to hear. Like, that's so nice to hear because, Dallas can be kind of a dumpster fire sometimes.
I
I
know.
love it. But but it's like, but it's also, I do hear this from people who have started their careers here. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people are not aware that there's lots of folks out there who did start their theater careers
Yeah,
in this city and
yeah,
then went off to do bigger and, greater things, but they always come back.
yeah.
Um,
And
so
I will say, and there's something, now that I'm back in town, of course, I'm hearing from everybody, oh, this is so difficult, that's so difficult. And, regional theaters, it's impossible to survive. It's always been impossible and it's only gotten worse.
yeah.
But having left it, I've been saying this to a few people, like, don't take for granted what Dallas has.
Mhm.
I desperately want these places to survive, but there are a whole lot of cities that have like a successful regional theater, and then several steps down, there are like church basement theaters of people trying to do
Right.
good. And Dallas has this band of mid-level theaters
Yeah.
that all have homes and that all have different artistic identities. Kitchen Dog, Undermain, Theater 3, Uptown Players, Second Thought Theater, Water Tower Theater, and that makes for a really healthy theater ecosystem. So don't take that
Yeah.
for granted, even though, like, man, do I want it all to survive.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It's so true. And it's, because there are so many of these kind of like mid-level in industry terms, SPTs, right? Which is small professional. We have our LORT theaters. Folks out there, there are LORT theaters, which is League of Regional Theaters, right? And then SPTs, which are small professional theaters. And that's how the unions recognize us. And we have so many SPTs. And sometimes you have like an identity crisis. Sometimes, and everybody works everywhere. We're like, we all know each other. We all talk to each other. Um, yeah, I just want to put that out there because sometimes I hear things and I'm like, do they think that we don't talk to each other? Okay. Um,
Well, that's true in every theater community. I used to say to my students, somebody said this to me many years ago, there are only three people in this business. There's you, there's the person you're auditioning or applying for a job for, and there's the person you know in common. And if that
yeah,
person tells everybody that you're an asshole, your career is over.
yeah,
Like you will never get.
everybody's gonna know.
Mhm.
Everybody's gonna know. What I love is when I get something from somebody and they're like, I did this over at Kitchen Dog, or I did this, and I'm sitting there going like, no, you didn't. Like, you did not. Like, one, I'm a Kitchen Dog Company member. Two, do you think we don't talk to each other? That's crazy. Um, no, yeah. So what I was saying is that sometimes it's wonderful to have all these mid-level theaters, but the con to that, or like the downside of that, if you can even call it a downside, is like carving your identity out, right? And Jeffrey and I like to say that we really we're not trying to be the theater center. We have the theater center and we need the theater center, and we all want the theater center to survive and thrive and flourish. It's important that Dallas Theater Center is successful, and we're not striving to be that. We are that step before the theater center. So for those young actors and designers and artists and directors who are trying to make their way up to Lord, they have a place where they can practice like the step right before Lord, and that's what T3 really strives to be, is to kind of give the artist a small big chance. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's also a place where you get to keep working because even if you're, I did a bunch of shows at the Theater Center, as did you for a long
Yeah.
time, but you don't work there all the time. You have
No.
to have other places to work, to stretch in different directions, to work with other people, to keep working while you're not doing the gig that is paying you as quite as
Right.
well as the film gig or the big Lord theater gig.
Right. We both do. Like, I work with a lot of students, a lot of college students and a lot of grad students. And, sometimes I'm very fortunate that I get to go direct at some of the universities here. I get to go lecture, like do a master class or whatever. And I, I tell the students all the time that, especially if they don't have experience in a professional community, it's mostly the undergrads. A lot of the grads already have some experience, but not all of them. But I like to tell them, like, you're going to get out of here. You're going to get out of school, and don't think that the first thing you're going to go do is work at a Lort level theater. Like, that's going to be once in a while, and it's great. And when the opportunity comes, take it, of course. But you're going to work more at the small theaters that have tiny dressing rooms with no wing space.
Mhm.
And don't take that for granted. Like, don't. And then the funny thing is that, both of us are very fortunate. We've worked at a lot of places. We've gotten to the Lort level. Um, when I go back and work at the tiny theaters,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I remember this. This is so great. It's like going back to school,
Mhm.
you know?
Absolutely. And you get to do the thing that you're not quite sure. Ooh, that feels risky. All right, let's do it and let's just see how
Right.
it goes.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me just jump in. How do you feel? What do you have to say to those actors who have a little bit more experience out there in the professional world, and think that maybe they are above coming into a preliminary audition instead of just being called in for a callback. How do you feel about that?
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, there are a handful of times, and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is one of the only ones where I was invited to play a role without auditioning. And if that happens, it's delightful, but it's
Yes.
rare. It only
Yeah.
happens when things line up in a very, very particular way. And the honest truth is, in some ways, it makes it harder because Vonda, the director, and I didn't really know each other. And
Right.
what you underestimate is the conversation starts at the audition. You are starting to make choices and getting feedback and figuring out who this person is, and not doing an audition is a little bit disorienting. Now,
Yeah.
Vonda's fantastic, and man, we hit it off right away. So it's been completely successful. But I just think an audition is a place to play. And
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it just seems silly. Of course you should go audition. It's healthy. It,
It's your job.
it is your job. It is your job.
It's
And it's where,
literally your job.
it's where you figure out, oh, if this is right for me or if it's not right for me. And usually when I don't get something, it's because like, oh yeah, that wasn't really mine. That's okay.
Yeah, Cora used to tell us, Cora over at Teatro Dallas, it's your job to
Mhm.
go audition. You need to get out there and let people see you. And you know when you do a good job. You really do. Like you know when you nail the audition and you know when you could have done better. And she always used to say, if you nailed it, like, or even if you didn't, go do your job and then go and buy yourself an ice cream or go
Right.
because you did that.
Right.
And
And go think about something else. Don't just sit
yeah,
by the phone and wait to find out if you got it. Move on with your life.
right. Move on because the audition is part of your job. Like you should be doing it all the time.
Yeah, when I
Um,
first moved to New York, I lived in New York for most of the 90s. When I first went there, the first year I went to every audition I could possibly go to, even things that I wasn't interested in, because auditions made me so nervous. I'm a
mhm.
sweater. It shows when I'm nervous. And I just made a point of going to everything. And after about a year, I was like, okay, I'm exhausted. I don't need to do this as much anymore. But it's what you do. You have to get used to what the audition situation is and make friends with it. It is not a place where people are, personifying your judgmental voices in your mind. It is just a place where you get to go and do a little bit of work and then move on.
Yeah. The other thing I say to my high school students is like, go in there and show them the best 3 minutes of your life. Like if you get 3 minutes, when I was teaching over at Booker T and they do like a showcase every year where colleges come and, you know that. And my advice to them was always, you're not going to them, they're coming to you. So you go in that room and say, like, this is my house, and let me show you how we do it at my house, and then show them the best 3 minutes of your life. And have a good time.
Right.
Have a good time.
And,
Um,
and I always recommend to students, if you get the chance, sit in on a day of auditions from the other side just to watch.
be
You
a
know,
reader.
be on the other side because it's so different from the other side. You're there sometimes all day watching dozens, sometimes hundreds of people doing their
Yep.
2 or 3 minutes, and you're exhausted, and sometimes you're not giving off the energy from your face that you would like to, and it has nothing to do with the person who's auditioning. And for
Right.
people to experience like that, oh, it's not about that. And also to experience, oh, who the people are who get your attention. And it's usually people who come in and know who they are and just tell the truth about something.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
true. It's true. I think everybody should take the opportunity to be a reader. Like
Mhm.
go in and be a
Absolutely.
reader at some point. Because also the other thing is that sometimes you're not being considered for something, but someone asks you to be a reader and you go in and you read all day. And at the end of the day, the director turns to you and goes, would you be interested in,
Mhm.
and you're like, yes, I would.
Mhm.
Um,
No,
Go-
the last show I did before Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I did Eurydice at River and Rail, and one member of the cast had been the reader and wound up in the
It's
show
happened,
because she
it
was.
has happened to me a few times because I'm a terrible monologue person. I mean, you learn monologues, you have to learn monologues. It's part of the job. I think they're so not natural. Um, but you got to do it. But I'm so terrible at them. I go in and freeze. But I'm a really good like cold reader.
Mhm.
Give me a scene
Mhm.
and give me a reader or a scene partner, and
Right.
I will go in and crush it. Like that's how I'm good. But
Yep.
a lot of times, the preliminary auditions are monologues, and it's I get really nervous too. I get so nervous. Um, Yeah. So how has it been? So first of all, I want to say I'm going to take full credit for you being in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Jeffrey and I got an email from you, coincidentally, saying, I'm going on sabbatical. I'm going to go do some stuff. If there's anything available for me, let me know. I'm happy to audition. And Jeffrey and I literally like looked at each other after the email and we were like, oh my God, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. So then it wasn't a hard sell, but I totally sold you to Vonda. I was like, let me tell you about this guy. And she was like, I trust you. Vonda and I have worked together so many times. So she trusted me on that. And I'm so glad because it's so much fun.
It's fun.
So tell me, what about Dirty Rotten Scoundrels scared you, if anything? And is there anything that you have learned or relearned or re-remembered or whatever?
Sure. I mean, I just wrote a piece for the Theater 3 blog about musical theaters in my life and different things. And I write about Dirty Rotten Scoundrels at the end. I did a lot of musical theater when I was young
Hmm.
and then didn't do it mostly as an adult. It's how I learned to do theater when I was young and then kind of left it behind. And in Nashville recently, what happened actually a few years ago is I did the season auditions for Nashville Rep. And I let them know that I was interested in the two straight plays that they were doing where I thought there were good roles. And I didn't get cast in those. But then the artistic director reached out and said, what about Elf? I think you could play Arthur Hobbs. And I was like, Elf? That's not what I do. I don't do musicals anymore. And I read it and listened to it, and I thought this could be fun. And I had the time of my life. I had so much time. And the book, frankly, isn't as well written as Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. But oh my
Hmm.
God, like to be on stage with these high quality singers, dancers, and Nashville musicians in a big 1,000-seat theater, I had a ball. And so I
Yeah.
started to do musicals again. I did Sunny in the Park with George the next year. I did Come From Away last year. But all of those were shows where I had maybe one song, the character guy with one song. I was like, great, I can do that. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I am the character guy, but he has 6 songs, including
Yeah.
a love song. And
You're one of the leads. Yeah.
yeah, but there are a lot of leads in musicals. Often the character guy just has a little song off to the
Right.
side and then carries a lot of the acting. But there are 6 songs that Lawrence has. And I was like, now it's a role written for John Lithgow, and he's my spirit animal. Like anything written for John Lithgow, I'm comfortable in, but 6 songs, including a love ballad, and it made me go, holy crap. And then I heard myself thinking those things, and I thought, boy, that's something you need to do. That's something that's scaring you in just the right way. I have
Right.
absolutely got to do this. And oh my God, am I glad I did.
Right. And you got to be you get to be on stage with Parker Gray,
Yeah,
he is a former student of yours,
he
isn't
is.
he?
Yeah, Parker Gray. Yeah, I mean, I taught at SMU for 16 years. Parker Gray was a student who was always just fantastic. And anyone who knows Parker Gray knows that he is a gifted comic actor. And when you guys mentioned Rotten Scoundrels to me, and I found out, what was going on, Parker came to my mind, and I didn't know how much he sang. My God, can he sing? But I was always hoping it might be. I mean, Parker Gray and I have so many SMU students who it's been fun to reunite with. But there's something about the pairing in this show. I mean, when Parker was a student, I had an office right on the green room, and he would be in the green room, and we just had this running gag where he would pretend to be my personal assistant, and he would update me on who had called that day when I was out of the office, and we would just do this, and he would say the most outrageous things, and I would look at him with this sort of dry condescension. It was like we sort of like. Like I'm not really a clown teacher, but clown teachers know, like you find what your clown persona is, and Parker's is the impulsive goofball, and mine is the dry. I can't believe
Right.
you did that, which is the
So
basis
this is
of
perfect.
teams, right?
Yeah,
It,
you've been rehearsing. You were rehearsing and didn't know.
yeah, it's like we have been doing this dynamic for many years, and getting to do it in these roles is, oh my God, a good time.
Isn't it great to, to see like when an actor when they're really young, when they're just a baby and they start out and that's the thing that I find really satisfying is to when I get to work with an actor who's brand new to it and they're just kind of like everything's new and everything's wonderful and then you get to see them evolve and then they become not proteges or not somebody that that you're bringing into the fold, but a colleague and someone who is and I like that's Parker to me. He's it's been such a joy to see him as a baby undergrad
Absolutely.
and turn into this like really master comedian.
Right.
He's really,
Absolutely.
really fantastic
And,
and
you know,
such a great singer.
at this point in my life, I don't have to do plays just to do the play. I want to work with people who are going to hit the ball back
Right,
and push me. Like, what is the, I don't need to come to town to do a play that's just like a play that I did here because I need some good
right,
guy tour bullshit. It's like, I want to
right,
sort of work with people who are fun to work with. And usually the really good people are the ones who are going to push you. Like, okay, let's go.
right. Yeah, like that's yeah, exactly same. Hadn't acted in a while, and even when we did armor plays, I hadn't been on stage in a little bit. I was directing a lot. And when the opportunity came up and I heard you were going to be in it, and I thought, "Oh, that's great. We had been on stage together, but we had never had interaction together." And I thought, "Oh, this will be so much fun." And the play was so meaty and wonderful. Yeah, I'm at that point now too, where I'm like, I want to do stuff, but I only want to do stuff because I know the people that I'm going to work with are going to be fun to work with, and will push me in ways I haven't been pushed
Yeah.
before.
I mean, there was something for me, going on sabbatical this year, I'm closer to the end of my teaching career than I am the beginning by quite a bit. And when I was planning this sabbatical, I had this moment when I realized for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm building my career. There are so many years where I was getting tenure, where I was making connections to different theaters. This show will lead to that. This relationship will lead to that. And planning this sabbatical, I realized I'm not building a career anymore. I'm just having a career. And where do I
Yeah.
want to work? Who do I want to work with? And that's so beautiful. And so, I mean, I've been lucky. For years now, because I teach, I didn't know I was going to love teaching. That was the surprise of my life. But because I loved teaching and made most of my income doing that, for years now, I've only auditioned for shows if I want to do them. And
Right.
that's an incredible privilege compared to when you're young, where you have
Yeah,
a foothold. But yeah, it's just about working with good people.
it
Can I
really
tell one
is.
story about working with you on the armor plays?
Yes, please, please,
Okay,
please.
this is my favorite. Well, we had such a funny love scene that was incredibly fun to do. But the scene where you killed me, spoiler alert, she kills me at the end. We have played, without telling the whole story, this couple who were on opposite sides of this civil war, and I had stayed with this sort of oppressive group in order to stay safe, and you were the leader of the rebellion, and we had a child, but you left the child with me because you knew that the child would be well taken care of. And it was pretty clear from the script that we loved one another still, but we're on opposite sides of this war.
Yes.
And you wound up killing me in this interrogation scene. And there were a couple of performances where when you killed me, a few audience members went, yeah, or cheered because they were so happy that the person with the oppressor, who was part of the
Right.
oppressive organization, got too excited. And when that happened, you consciously or unconsciously, what happened to you afterwards was more painful. It was like you wouldn't allow people to make it simple. Like you had just done this brave, difficult thing, but it hurt. And you wouldn't let people off the hook because all good plays are about, oh, this is more complicated than I thought it was. And it's this, and I was lying dead on the table, and I could hear you not allowing the audience to simplify what had just happened.
Whoa, I don't even know what I did.
You your crying was more visceral.
Uh-huh.
And again, and it happened when audience members enjoyed it and you wouldn't let them. It's like,
Yeah,
don't pretend I don't still love this man. I just had to kill him. Like it's got to be complicated.
right. It's never simple. It can never be simple, especially those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
plays
thank
are
you.
it's a compact vehicle, and all good plays, we meet people and these people are going to surprise us by the end of the play, or it shouldn't be a
Right.
play.
Right. Yeah, I do. I mean, I do have to say that I'm a big fan of punch in the gut theater. Okay, so before we run out of time, I
Yeah.
feel like no time has passed. Um, I wanted to
We'll
ask
go out and
you,
drink and talk more, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, a few things. So we're both parents, right? And your son is now how old?
He's 20.
He's
That
20 years
that
old.
always shocks that always shocks my SMU students because they saw him as a little kid running around the
Yes,
room. But
I
yes,
remember him as a little kid, and now he's 20. He's off in college, right? So we've talked a
actually,
little.
not college. He's at a technical school studying welding, as a matter of fact.
Good for him.
He has chosen that path, and we completely support that.
Good for him. You know what? The other day, Jeffrey and I were talking about how it's too bad that that kids don't take home ec or like the kind of like those kinds of classes anymore or go to
Well,
those kinds. Yeah.
they may well be coming back because everyone's so scared about what this AI future is. But hey, going towards, but he's always been a hands-on guy, and
Yeah.
yeah, going towards something that whatever it is that you love. He's never been a
Yeah.
theater kid. I don't care if he follows in
No.
my path at all. I just want him to
No.
be happy and find his
Th-
path.
That's exactly it. And so, how has that made a difference in your career? You know, not him being out of the house, because as parents, your entire career when your kids are small, you kind of have to constantly be can I do this? Can I do that? When can I do that? John and I taking turns, or it's like you really want to do something and you can't do it and it's all fine, whatever. But has it changed?
Well, sure. I mean, this year, I mean, getting, my sabbatical, I did two plays in Nashville. I did one in Knoxville. I'm doing one in Dallas. And I did a Shakespeare workshop with Patsy Rodenberg in Portugal. I mean, that I couldn't have done that before being an empty nester. I
Right.
always kept acting, but I had to be much more selective about it. And there's something wonderful about, oh, what do we want to do now? And of
Yeah.
course, you're still a parent. You still worry, you still support, but it's not the same kind of intensive, number of hours in the day that it takes up. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, in the early years of parenting, I remember thinking, okay, I'm a professor, I'm a parent, and I'm trying to still be a professional actor. And if I was doing all three at once, it was juggling. And I always felt like I can do two of them well at any given time. And as long as I move fast enough and keep switching the one that I'm doing badly, maybe people won't notice.
Oh
But
my gosh. Like it's like you're reading my mind. I look back on stuff that I did when my kids were little, like stuff that I was working on. I'm like, oh my, why did I do that at that? Well, anyway,
yeah. But honestly, I got to talk with your daughter Issa last night at the Dallas Shakespeare Festival, which was delightful. But how
she's
lucky.
delightful. We're going to
you know,
keep her.
I had lunch. Good. I had lunch with Sally Vale and Chambly Ferguson, who happened to be back in town at the same time. And we just talked and talked and talked. And we all were theater artists. They were in Dallas a little bit before I was, but we all were making our way through our careers and raising families and having relationships. And you're
Yeah.
someone who's done this too. And like, man, we all had to make choices and had some victories and didn't get other things. But made it all work. And I'm so proud sort of looking back at that for all of us that we
Yeah.
were able to carve that out. Like how
Yeah.
lucky and how much hard work. There's something about becoming a parent too that it makes you more selective. It makes you really think much harder about, oh, what am I gonna make time for in my life?
Right.
I'm
Absolutely.
not doing I don't need to do the commercial audition. I don't need to do
Right.
the play that I think will look good on my resume that I'm not really excited about. It gets you much more focused on
Right.
who really am I and what feeds me and what because it's taking time away from your family, so it better be worth it.
You're
And there's a
so
whole
right.
lot that you
I've
say no
never
to.
thought of that, but it's true. The other thing I want to ask about is you have a podcast.
I do. It doesn't exist in the world yet, but I've been working on it. I'm now
Tell us
50.
about
I'm
tell us
51
about this
interviews in.
podcast.
Yeah, well, it's inspired by an episode of This American Life that's sort of
Uh-huh.
an early cult hit episode. It's called Fiasco, and it opens with an incredibly funny conversation between Jack Hitt and Ira Glass, a description of a production of Peter Pan that goes disastrously comically wrong.
Yes.
Do you know this episode?
Yes, I do. I do.
It's hysterically funny and a bit
Yes.
painful. And they don't identify in the episode where it happened. They're very sort of discreet and tactful. It happened at Sewanee in the little town, in the little college town where I now live. And I've always wanted, I think the name was left out of a sense of respect and tact, but I've always felt like we got to claim this. So I started interviewing people who were in it as children, talking about the experience and talking about what it's like to have been in something that then became this iconic representation of fiasco. And it sort of spiraled outwards into Peter Pan is sort of famously complicated because it's both
Right.
a family-friendly musical and technically complicated, and those two things
Yes.
against each other. And I've been hearing people's stories about flying on stage, about danger on stage, about shifting perspectives on danger on stage, and just asking the question of how do you feel about the show goes on? And there are a whole wide range of responses to that. So
Oh
I've
yeah.
having great conversations about it. It will
That
hopefully
sounds like
exist
so much fun.
in about a year. I think it'll be called Breaking Legs, but we'll see.
That's a great title. I can't wait to hear. I mean, everybody has a fiasco story, actually. Like everybody. And are you familiar with that? That's a wonderful Canadian show, Slings and Arrows.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, there's a great line from that show where they keep trying to put on Lear, they keep trying to put on Lear, that keeps getting canceled. Stuff, just horrible things stop, keep happening. And the Cordelia, she's really sad because it finally gets canceled, whatever. And one of the older actors says, "Hey, listen, you've got to have some real cock-ups.
Hmm.
You've got to have some real cock-ups in your
Yeah.
career because then you have stories."
Hmm. Right.
And it's just one of those moments that's like, it's so true. It's so true. And in the moment, like I have a few cock-up stories. Um, they're not funny. But, years later upon reflection, it's like, oh my God, how did we get through that? How did we get through that?
Well,
Um,
and if you weren't ever in any bad plays, you don't really know. You learn so much from seeing bad theater now and then. I mean, if you do it too often, it's terrible. But once in a while, if you see a bad production of a play that you love, you learn so much from that.
it's true. It's true. And you also learn what not to do next time or, how not to handle things.
Right.
Next time. Um, yeah, that's so much fun. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah,
Um,
I've been having a great time. I'm 51 interviews in now. I just interviewed Joel Farrell yesterday, and he was on the Sandy Duncan National Tour of Peter Pan and has
yes,
amazing stories.
yes, I love. He has what is it? Frank Gorshin. He has stories about
Yes.
Frank Gorshin,
Mhm. Yes.
which I love. I love. Oh, I can't wait. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do before I let you go, so you can
Oh,
go
can I
watch
can
a
I chime
show.
in one more thing before you do your last thing?
Sure.
Because I just want Theater 3 to survive so much because I have such affection for it and admiration. And I just want to say, I think you and Jeffrey are doing such a good job with the place. And I say that as somebody who worked there for the first time in 1999, did a couple of plays directed by Jack Alder, and has real affection for what it used to be. But I think about theaters changing leadership. I think about this the way I think about when a novel is adapted into a film. For me, some people get upset if you change anything, and for me, the films don't work if people are too reverential of exactly what
Yeah,
the thing was before because the medium is different. And
it's
I think
different.
you and Jeffrey have done such a beautiful job of holding on to the spirit of the fun and in your face nature of Theater 3 because its shape and its location, and yet allowing it to become something different. It is still so accessible and about the community, but it's a little darker and edgier and it's a little campier now. And I think you're sort of carving out a new identity in a way that still has a relationship to the old identity. And I just wish you so well with it.
Oh, thank you so much.
I only get to see things there now every now and then, but even from watching from afar, there's something about the way you're leaning into a really dark, smart, campy aesthetic, which is a little different from what everyone else is doing, which is, that's the way to have the healthy ecosystem.
That's uh, that's me. You just described me, dark and campy. Um, I love dark and campy. All right. So thank you for that. So we're gonna close with the famous the James Lipton
Ooh,
questionnaire.
the actual question.
I don't do this with everybody, but I thought it'll be perfect with Jim. All right, so here we go. What is your favorite word?
Serendipity.
What is your least favorite word?
That I don't know that I have a good answer for that one. Oh, I'm going to steal. No, I'm just going to. I remember seeing Meryl Streep do this quiz, and I loved so much her answer. She sort of looked out and she said, "Edgy," just because she had heard so many Hollywood executives pitch thing with that word as a way to avoid doing the hard work. So I'm just gonna say that.
Edgy. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Well, it's always been theater, and we were sort of talking about this before, but man, did I learn about myself as a teacher. I loved teaching. I love teaching them at the beginning because the learning curve is so steep and you get to see discoveries happen. And for me, that's really addictive. I love seeing people be brave enough to step outside their comfort zone and take a risk and have something pay off and
Yeah.
expand who they are.
What turns you off?
Anybody who doesn't take responsibility for the power they have in the room, you know,
Yeah.
And that's baked into both educational and theater experiences. There's a leader and people who don't. And yet it's interesting because I had to sort of look at myself at some point in my career and go, oh, there are people who are afraid of me. I have power over students. I have power over younger colleagues about whether or not they get tenure. And the people who don't take responsibility for that, I think, are dangerous.
Yeah, that's what is your favorite curse word?
Motherfucker.
That's a great one. What sound or noise do you love?
Boy, everybody says this, but lapping waves at the ocean.
What sound or noise do you hate?
I hate it. I hate hearing people walking into a theater space or rehearsal studio loudly talking or laughing, not understanding that there might be work that's really intimate that's happening inside. I say this to my students every time for the rest of your life you walk into a theater or rehearsal space, assume that somebody is doing something that makes them feel vulnerable.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I almost went into social work, in New York during my struggling actor years. I started working doing volunteer work on the AIDS hotline at Gay Men's Health Crisis. And I became close to leaving being an actor and doing that. And then I taught my first class and I realized, oh, that's where it fuses together.
Yeah.
But I could have been a social worker or therapist.
That's crazy. What profession would you not like to do?
Anything in isolation, I mean, like word processing in a room alone, word processing. Maybe this is because I worked as a paralegal at a law firm. It was my survival job in the 90s. But there were people who had to kind of do it in isolation, just kind of proofread documents that not like interesting writing, but like proofreading legal documents is just horrible.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I should have thought about this in advance. I think I'll just go with auditions are down the hall.
That's great. That's actually a really great way to end today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jim. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to see you. I wish I'd had more opportunity to hang out with you while you were here.
Hey.
But we still have 2 weeks.
We do still have time.
Yeah,
we'll keep crossing paths. I'm not worried about that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Christie. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being here.